And we are streaming live and in color. Hello and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live event. Glad you are here. So, while we are still waiting for people to join, do me a favor and maybe hit the like button. This helps other people to see that this event is happening right now. And while you are at it, maybe just let me know in the comments where you are joining from. Okay, that's always interesting to know for me. So, today's live stream is a special one for all the AI patent fans out there. The topic is unlocking OpenAI's patent secrets. So, I'm really looking forward to talking through with you what one of the big tech giants in AI is doing with their intellectual property and how they approach their patent filings. So, without further ado, let's get into the topic. I see that people are joining. We are 43 people online and counting. So, I prepared a little presentation for today's live stream. So, let me share my screen. All right. So, what are we gonna capture in today's live stream? Let's take a deep dive into OpenAI's published patents. So, three parts to this video. First of all, I want to walk you through OpenAI's patent filing strategy. Then we will take kind of a deeper look into what's inside OpenAI's patents from a technical perspective. What do they actually cover in their patents? And then in the last part, we are going to look at what's probably going to happen next with OpenAI's patent portfolio. Okay. So, 50 people online. Let's start the show. So, chapter 1, OpenAI's patent filing strategy. So, what I did when I prepared for this video, I was just looking up on ESFASnet, which is one of the publicly available patent databases, the one provided by the European Patent Office. And I just searched for the applicant OpenAI. And until very recently, if you were looking for patents by OpenAI, you wouldn't find anything, because until very recently, there were no hits at all. But things have changed very recently, and now we can see some first publications. So, and based on my search in ESPASnet, I made a little graphical timeline to put things more into perspective. And it looks like this. So what we can see is that currently OpenAI has 7 published patent families, which are publicly available. And those include 6 issued US patents, and 2 more US applications have been filed, and those are already have received a notice of allowance. So already those 2 also will be issued patents very soon. So in the near future, the notices of allowance were in April. So grant can be expected quite soon, maybe in the next weeks or so. So very soon, OpenAI will have 8 issued US patents in total. What's interesting is that OpenAI seems to take a little bit of a different approach with filing their patents as compared to most tech giants out there. So typically, what you see is when you look at patent portfolios of the big tech companies from the US, typically what they do is they start each patent family with a US provisional, typically, and then followed by a PCT application to kind of stretch out the patent prosecution and the costly decisions as far as possible into the future. Not OpenAI. OpenAI is stepping on the gas, so to say, because as you can see here, they filed a bunch of patents last year, starting in March last year, and within a very short time frame. And those patents have already been issued, which is a very, very quick patent granting procedure. And this is because OpenAI is apparently a heavy user of the Track 1 program. So at the USPTO, you have a special thing. You can file a normal patent application, and then you can apply for the Track 1 program, which is some kind of accelerated processing then of your application. It's for an additional fee for, I think, like 1,500 US dollars roundabout. And then the application is processed faster than normal, which we can see here very nicely. So the fastest patent was granted even within 9 months. Here, filed in April 2023 and issued in January this year. And they did this for all of their patent filings. So I think that's an interesting first insight. So the average time from filing to grant of those patents from OpenAI is 11 months, which is very, very fast. So they are really, going all in on their US patent filings here. As I said, that's kind of different from the typical US deep tech patent filing strategy, where you would file a US provisional and then file a PCT, and then only 2.5 years after the priority date, you would enter the regional or national phases and then fight out with the national examiners where or in which form the patents are granted. So here OpenAI takes a different approach. They mostly, with one exception, file US full utility patent applications already as first filings. They do the track 1 request, and so they get their patents in the US very, very quickly. Also, a second insight maybe, so far, no non-US filings are visible in the public patent databases. So we can only see those 7 or soon to be 8 US patents which are already granted, but no non-US filings are visible so far. So it's probably worth monitoring the portfolio to see how things evolve beyond the USA. So all in all, I would say from a patent filing strategy standpoint, OpenAI seems to take a very strong emphasis on the US market, and they really apparently are aiming for speed here, right? So what's inside OpenAI's patents from a technical perspective? So here's just a listing of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 granted US patents and the 2 pending applications. Let's briefly go through the titles to get an idea of what those patents concern. So the first patent family here with the 2 still pending but soon to be granted patents. As I said, there is a notice of allowance already for both. The title is about systems and methods for generating natural language using language models trained on computer code. So seems to be somehow related to I don't know, code generation using LLMs probably. Then we have other patents for systems and methods for language model-based text insertion and for language model-based text editing. So those seem to concern probably the typical prompting text-based interaction where you input a text into the LLM, into ChatGPT in that case, in your prompt, and then you get a result back, right? Then we have one granted patent about schema-based integration of external APIs with natural language applications. So this probably concerns, how you can connect the LLM GPT, the GPT model in that case, to other computer programs via application programming interfaces. Then we also have patents for the image generation function by OpenAI. You all know DALL-E, probably, the image generation model. So there's one patent that is titled Systems and Methods for Hierarchical Text Conditional Image Generation. And another one, that's the last one, Systems and Methods for Image Generation with Machine Learning Models. So those seem to concern, image generation in the broadest sense. And then there's one more, using machine learning to train and use a model to perform automatic interface actions based on video and input data sets. Interface actions, so maybe also this one concerns like the API related patent, how you can connect the GPT model to other computer software to autonomously perform tasks by the AI. So this maybe goes into the direction of, autonomous agents, AI agents, and things like that. So maybe let's have a brief look into selected a subset of those patterns. So maybe let's just have a look at the first pattern application here, the oldest one. I'm trying to open up my browser window here. As I said, so this is soon to be granted. So let's have a quick glimpse at the originally filed claims, just so that we see what OpenAI has tried to cover here. So claim 1 is a computer implemented method. And the method has a number of steps. It starts with receiving a doc string representing natural language text, specifying a digital programming result. Okay, so apparently here the user has to input natural language text, which specifies in some way a digital programming result. And then the method generates, using a trained machine learning model, one or more computer code samples configured to produce respective candidate results. So code is generated here. And then the method says, causing each of the one or more computer code samples to be executed in a testing environment. Then certain subset of the samples is identified and so on. So apparently this patent kind of talks about generating code using a large language model. From a first glance, I would say, without going into the specific details, so that, yeah, although this is the patent family with the earliest priority date by OpenAI, at least which is publicly available right now, this patent does not seem to cover, let's say, a fundamental functionality, but yeah, a specific use case of LLMs, of GPT in that case, namely, coding, right? Creating computer code and also automatically testing it so that it also already does what the user wants. Another example, maybe let's look into one of those patents with language model-based text insertion and editing. So this granted patent, for example, let's look at the issued claims. Claim 1 is directed to a system comprising basically a generic computer. And this computer is configured to execute operations comprising receiving an input text prompt comprising a prefix portion and a suffix portion. Okay, so again, here's a prompt coming in from the user, probably. Then the method determines a set of model parameters based on the prompt. It's left open what those model parameters are, maybe some things like the temperature of the model. It's left open here in the claim. Then a large language model is accessed based on the input text prompt and the model parameters. And then the method goes on with determining a set of context parameters based on the input text prompt and the language model. So those are not the model parameters, but those are additional context parameters which are determined then. And the patent is even more specific here in that it says that this set of context parameters comprises at least one of location, person, time, or event. So that's, yeah, kind of a specific feature here. And then, based on all of the above, a large language model output text is generated. So this is probably, I would think, the output, the response then to the user query, right? But then the method still goes on with the step of inserting the language model output text, so what was generated by the model, inserting this language model output text into the input text prompt based on the language model. Just from reading the claim, I'm not entirely sure what this is about. Here, apparently, some kind of the response produced by the model is kind of inserted back into the input text prompt. I'm not sure why you would do that. And then the last step of the method says optimizing the accessed language model by aligning the language model based on the language model output using machine learning. So an additional optimizing step in there, and then there is a wherein clause with two elements which then specifies even more precisely how this optimizing is done. So also here, I would say, just based on a rough glance on this patent claim, I would say it does not seem to cover, let's say, fundamental breakthrough principles in large language modeling, but more or less some kind of specific use case. On the one hand, the claim is quite specific on the side of these context parameters, what they include. And then it has a very specific workflow that the language model output is somehow inserted back into the text prompt, and then there's this additional optimizing going on, which is even said to be through one or more iterative cycles of training. So I would say, from just very, very broadly speaking, quite a specific claim in that sense. And I think that's enough for specific examples here. That's the typical case in all of those patents. They do not seem to cover fundamental, very broad concepts, but really, really specific individual sub-features and use cases of what you can do with GPT. So what's going to happen next? As I said, we have those 6 or soon to be 8 granted US patents now on the table. But what about international patent filings? Are those on the horizon? Well, here we can currently only do some educated guessing, because as you might know, in normal patent filing strategies, you always have this 18 months publication lag, right? When anyone in the world files a normal patent application, it first stays a secret between the patent applicant and the patent office, and only 1.5 years later, the patent application is published, so that the public, we can see from the outside what's going on there and what was actually filed. And here, when we look back 18 months from today, we see that the whole filing, the majority of the filing activities are still in this publication lag gray cloud, so to say. Nevertheless, those US patents have been granted because of the track 1 request. They have been published, because of that track 1 approach, because the patents were filed roughly within 1 year, and once because the patents were issued roughly within 1 year, and once they are issued, they are also published even before the 18 months deadline. An exception is, of course, this one patent family where they are claiming a priority of a US provisional. So here we can already say with certainty that no PCT application is or has followed. No PCT application does exist, because the priority date, 14th of July 2022. If we go into the future 18 months, this has already passed. So if there was a PCT application, it would have been published already. But we don't know for sure for the other patent families where we have those granted US patents, because, as I said, if we look at the earliest one here with a filing date of March 14th, 2023, in case OpenAI also filed a PCT application claiming the priority of that US patent, that PCT application would probably then be published only around about middle of September this year. So we will just have to see how this turns out. I'm really expecting that OpenAI, if they take it seriously, that they have filed PCT applications, or maybe even direct patent applications in other jurisdictions, for example, at the EPO. But let's see. So it's worth to watch how the patent portfolio evolves here. One last thing to note, to put things into perspective, I think that's also interesting to see that OpenAI seems to be, let's say, quite late to the party when it comes to their patent filings. Because, as I said, with this one exception, all of the 6 granted US patents have been filed in March 2023 or later. And if we remember back when ChatGPT was launched to the public. This was in November 2022, so 1.5 years ago. So apparently, OpenAI did not file patents or didn't put much emphasis on patents, only filed one US provisional before the ChatGPT launch, and the rest of those patents we see now all have been filed after, quite some time after the launch of ChatGPT. And when I saw this timing correspondence, I was thinking about, will we maybe see another Steve Jobs patent mistake? So this will be interesting to see in the intermediate or in the past, in the future. What do I mean by that? So, little side story here. There was this famous case where Apple had a bunch of patents on the so-called, I think it was called rubber band bounding effect. So when you use your iPhone and you scroll through a list, right, with your finger, and once you reach the end of the list, but you still scroll further, the items kind of stretch out like a rubber band and then bounce back to signal to you that you have reached the end of the list and you can't scroll anymore. So this was the subject of a number of patents held by Apple. And there was this famous case during the ongoing smartphone wars. I think it was in the litigation between Motorola and Apple, where the German part of one of those European patents was finally, many years after the grant, invalidated based on a piece of prior art which was formed by a public demo of this rubber band feature by Steve Jobs himself, because Steve Jobs had shown this rubber band bouncing effect in one of his keynotes before the keynote had happened before the priority date of the European patent. Now, for the US patents of Apple, this was not a problem, because in the US, as you might know, we have this 1-year grace period. So any public disclosure of the invention by the inventors or the applicant within 1 year before filing a patent application does not harm the US patent. But this is different in basically anywhere else in the world. And especially in Europe, we have this fundamentally strict absolute novelty requirement. We don't have a grace period. And the situation timing-wise looks similar here. Here you have a product launch, and the earliest filing dates of many of those patents are after that. So not saying that OpenAI will get into those problems later on, like Apple did, but let's see. It's worth watching the space and to see how things will evolve. Okay, so quick and dirty, that's it for today's live stream. I hope you found this helpful. I think this is an interesting view into how one of the biggest, probably the biggest, or at least most popular AI tech giants is approaching their patent filings. If you liked this video, please stay tuned. I will watch the space, as I said, and maybe in September or October, we will see whether there are PCT applications coming out of this portfolio, and I will probably make an update video then when there is new findings. All right? Okay. So thanks for watching. And with that being said, see you next time.